You know that sinking feeling when you walk through an open house and fall in love with a place, only to realize later that buying it would put unnecessary pressure on your finances? Or maybe you've experienced the opposite problem where you're shopping for homes way below what you think you can afford, missing out on opportunities because you're scared of overextending yourself. Here's the thing that's going to surprise you. Most people have absolutely no idea how much house they can actually afford. And I'm not talking about the difference between a 3-bedroom and a 4-bedroom. I'm talking about being off by tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in either direction. There's a specific calculation that determines exactly how much house you can buy without hurting your long-term financial stability. But here's what's interesting. The rule that everyone thinks they know is actually outdated. And using the wrong formula could either keep you renting forever when you could be building equity, or push you into a financial situation that feels much more restrictive than it needs to be. My name is Alex, and I've spent years studying real estate markets, mortgage lending, and the psychology behind why some people build wealth through home ownership while others struggle with the ongoing costs. If you want to understand the real mathematics behind smart home buying and avoid the mistakes that keep millions of people either house poor or unnecessarily locked out of home ownership, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it helps clarify things for you. Now, before we dive into the hidden rule that changes everything, let me paint you a picture of what happens when people get this wrong. You probably know someone who bought a house and suddenly became that person who can't go out to dinner anymore because every dollar goes toward their mortgage payment. They're constantly stressed about money, can't take vacations, and basically feel limited by their housing costs. On the flip side, you might know someone who's been saving for a down payment for years, convinced they need to wait until they have $50,000 saved up, when they could have been building equity this entire time. Both of these scenarios come from the same fundamental problem. People are using outdated rules that don't reflect how modern lending actually works. The traditional advice you hear everywhere is based on guidelines that made sense 30 years ago, but are less reliable in today's market. Interest rates are different, lending standards have evolved, and the hidden costs of home ownership have changed dramatically. Here's something that will probably surprise you. The rule that financial advisors love to quote, the one that says you should spend no more than 28% of your income on housing, isn't even the rule that mortgage lenders actually use when they decide how much money to loan you. There's a completely different calculation happening behind the scenes that most borrowers never learn about. And understanding this calculation is the difference between getting approved for the right amount versus getting approved for an amount that either limits your options or puts unnecessary stress on your budget. Let's talk about what happens in the real world when someone tries to buy a house. Take Sarah, who makes $75,000 per year. Using the traditional rules, she thinks she can afford about $1,500 per month for housing costs. So she starts looking at homes in that price range, gets pre-approved by a lender, and finds a place she loves. But then reality hits. The actual monthly payment ends up being $2,200 when you factor in property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and all the other costs that nobody warned her about. Suddenly she's spending over 35% of her income just on housing, which leaves very little room for anything else in her budget. Meanwhile, there's James, who makes the same $75,000 but has been told he needs to save up 20% for a down payment before he can even think about buying. He's been renting for 5 years, watching home prices climb higher and higher because he's following advice that might not even apply to his situation. The missed opportunity of waiting could end up costing him more than just buying sooner with a smaller down payment. Both Sarah and James are facing the same issue. They're operating with incomplete information about how home affordability actually works. The real formula takes into account factors that most people never consider. your total debt obligations, the current interest rate environment, regional variations in property taxes and insurance costs, and even your job stability all play a role in determining not just how much house you can buy, but how much house you should buy. The truth is, lenders use something called the debt-to-income ratio, and it's not the 28% rule you've been hearing about your entire life. The actual calculation is called the 36/43 rule. Your total monthly debt payments, including your future mortgage, shouldn't exceed 36% of your gross monthly income. But here's where it gets interesting. Some lenders will actually go up to 43% if you meet certain criteria. This means if you're making $75,000 per year, you could potentially qualify for monthly debt payments of up to $2,700. Not the $1,500 you thought was your limit. But wait, there's more to this story. The 36/43 rule is just the starting point. What really determines how much house you can afford depends on something most people completely overlook: the current interest rate environment. Right now, 30-year mortgage rates are sitting around 6.2%. That might not sound like much, but here's what this means in real dollars. On a $400,000 mortgage, the difference between a 4% interest rate and a 6% interest rate is about $400 per month. $400. That's the difference between being able to comfortably afford a home and needing to adjust your price range. This is why timing matters so much more than people realize. When rates were at historic lows a few years ago, someone making $75,000 could afford a significantly more expensive home than they can today. The monthly payment calculation completely changes based on the interest rate environment, which means your buying power fluctuates with the market whether you realize it or not. But here's what people often overlook when they're explaining these ratios: the additional costs that can significantly impact your budget even if you qualify for the loan. Let's go back to our example of someone looking at a $400,000 home. The principal and interest payment might be $2,200 per month, which seems manageable. But then you add property taxes, which could be anywhere from $200 to $800 per month, depending on where you live. Homeowners insurance adds another $200 to $300. If you put down less than 20%, private mortgage insurance could add another $200 to $400 monthly. The bottom line is this: understanding how much house you can truly afford isn't just about following some outdated percentage rule or assuming your lender knows what's best for your situation. It's about taking control of the calculation yourself and factoring in all the real costs involved. When you know the actual numbers, you can make an informed decision about whether home ownership makes sense for your situation right now, or if you need to adjust your timeline. Smart decisions today protect your financial well-being tomorrow.